Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome out here to the garage. Today we are going to do a little bit of a story time video, a switching to Linux story maybe while we set up a Linux operating system, install it over on my garage PC over here. So let's jump into it and I can just talk while we're installing stuff. So I'm going to switch over here. I am installing EndeavorOS on some really ancient hardware. I've got my, glass of Jim Beam here, kind of a homage to hardware computing. Um, Guys like that are one of the reasons why I've got this ancient old hardware that I'm using. I need this one to be the first one. If you've never installed Linux before, it's pretty simple. You download your image, you use a program like Balena Etcher, or what's the other one I'm thinking of? Rufus if you're on Windows. Flash your image to a USB drive. Boot from the USB drive and install. That is what we are going to be doing. EndeavorOS is basically Arch Linux with training wheels. That's the best way to describe it, in my opinion. I have been using it since its existence. I think it was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago that it rose out of the ashes, you could say, of EndeavorOS, which was probably the original easy installer for Arch. Now, my switch to Linux happened back in early 2000s. I was in high school, I was playing in a band, and we were getting into music recording, and we wanted to do multi-track recording, but we didn't have any money. So our door kind of opened the door for that. I'd already kind of seen things about Ubuntu and switched over one machine to Ubuntu and played around with, the wobbly windows and the desktop cube and stuff. After, Windows XP and Windows 7 stuff, like I kind of tried to get away from Windows because there were multiple times where I got a new system and I needed to I had my install disk and it wouldn't work and it was a mess and it just made me frustrated. So frustration and being broke and needing certain software kind of made me interested in Linux. I think it's kind of interesting to hear different people's stories. Here we are into the live installer. First thing I do is I always update the mirrors. I don't think you need to, but it might make the process go a little bit faster. The hardware we are installing this on is an old X79 Machinist AliExpress motherboard and a E5, is it the 1650 V2 or something like that? It's the 6-core 12-threaded Xeon processor. And then I've got an RX 470 graphics card with a NVMe SSD. I think this machine has 16 gigs of RAM installed on it. So it's not an impressive build by any means, but it is, it's out here in my garage mounted in the open air on the wall. So, it is what it is. This computer needs to do 3 things for me. It needs to be able to access the internet, play YouTube videos, that kind of stuff. And then it needs to be able to run Orca Slicer, which I think it shouldn't have any problem doing. And then the next thing I need is STL previews for my Orca Slicer stuff. That's all this computer has to do. And if it does that, I'll be happy. And making it out of scrap parts that I had laying around the house makes it even better. So we are in the installer. Oh, 5 years of Endeavor. They're celebrating. So cool. All right. Knows my location already. Standard keyboard. I used KDE Plasma. When I switched over to Linux, I was a GNOME boy. I really liked GNOME Classic. Then when GNOME started changing, I kind of jumped around a little bit. Of course, I played around with all the variants, XFCE, KDE. Surprisingly, I could not stand KDE. I thought it was clunky and cluttered. I didn't like it. It's grown a lot since, you know, the early 2000s or whatever. In college, I went through college with a Acer C720 Chromebook that I loaded. I ran Ubuntu Mate on there. The Mate desktop was, I really liked that. Had that classic GNOME look to it. And then eventually I found EndeavorOS and I ran that. And that really kind of forced me to learn a lot more about Linux and how things work. I wouldn't recommend like an Arch-based distro to anybody just getting out started, but if you've got your feet wet and you really want to learn and you're not afraid to use the command line, I really, really like Endeavor for that reason, or these Arch-based distros for that reason. All right, so I think we're finished up now. Okay, so we're going to restart, reboot. Once we get into the operating system, I'm going to start installing programs. And I used Ubuntu, I used Ubuntu Studio, all of those program operating systems. I jumped around a lot, and I really stuck with the EndeavorOS / EndeavorOS operating systems, the Arch-based ones, because I can get this PC set up with all of the apps I want without ever entering a web browser. I can do it all through the terminal, which I know that probably sounds geeky to some people, but I absolutely love it. So let's get started. So yay, oops, is the, I can't type. Yay is the command for pulling from the Arch user repository. It's probably not good practice, but I install everything through yay. I don't know. I'm not a power user. I really am not claiming to know anything about Linux. I just am a user, if that makes any sense. First thing, let's install Orca Slicer, if I could spell right. There we go. Okay, so I've got a few options here. I know from experience, it's going to take a really long time to do option 1. Option 2 is out of date. Option 4 is going to take forever. Option 3 is just the bin file, so that's going to be the fastest one to install. So let's do that right now. While that is happening, let's do some multitasking and get rid of this background, because I really don't like the whole rocket thing. So password in there. Yes, we want to install. Let's find a background that I like. I like this one. Let's install it. And let's use it. Oh, that's not going to work. All right. Let's try it again. And let's do this version. All right. We got our background fixed. We're still waiting on that terminal to finish up. So let's do one of the obligatory Linux things, and let's customize our terminal, which I really don't do too much as far as customizations go. I am after one thing and one thing alone, really, and that is turning my background transparent. About 22% is probably good. Oh, we're done with that. Okay, so Orca Slicer is installed. I'm going to close my terminal. Now I've got my transparent terminal. Next thing I need is STL thumbnailer for those STL files. So I need yay again, and then I'm going to do STL. Again, I can't spell. There we go. I really like that you can just kind of give it a keyword in the AUR and it'll pop up kind of packages matching. It's not the best, but it gets the job done. Now here, just from past experience, all of my machines run Endeavor, and I've gone through this issue before. For whatever reason, currently, the AUR version of STL Thumb does not work correctly on any of my systems, but the out-of-date Git version does work. So let's install that. Now this one is pulling from GitHub, so it might take a little bit longer to install. So let's do some more customizations. We got to get our Windows taken care of. If you have been using Linux for a long time, you know you got to have wobbly windows. They're just they're absolutely necessary. You have to have them. And you can't have less. You got to have they got to be pretty wobbly, all right? Look at that wobble. Boom, wobble. All right? We love it. We love our wobbly windows. Okay. So, we're still doing some stuff over here. So let's make our desktop look a little bit prettier. Let's not necessarily prettier, but let's add our CPU stuff in here. We can see why our ancient hardware is so slow. Yeah, I like it that way. Okay. And then maybe let's add, we got time. Let's add our digital clock. I like to have that up in the corner. I get to be pretty big. I like that. Okay, and we are still waiting. We're maxing out those old cores, man. Where are we at? I started this video. We're 16 minutes into the install. All right, that's not too bad. Can you get a Windows computer set up in 16 minutes? I don't know. I don't really want to do the comparison. I have not done much on Windows in a very long time. My job requires me to use Windows, and some of you are probably going to be upset because I'm going to install Google Chrome, because my options at work are Google Chrome or Edge browser. So I use Google Chrome. I know, you don't have to tell me, but that's what I use. So after we get the STL stuff figured out, we will install Google Chrome. I said I'm not going to open a web browser until everything's done. So I'm going to hold off from, actually, I'm not even going to get an STL file because I will take the STL file from my NAS. So for KDE, now that we have STL Thumb installed, we need the KDE STL Thumb plugin. I'm not going to lie. You do have to do work. You do have to read and figure out what programs you need and what to install to get things working on Linux. I've done this so many times, it's going really fast. And I'm sure it would be pretty slow for a Windows machine as well. You got to go and get the software from all the different places. It's just, I like the terminal, okay? Don't judge me. So let's do this. Yay. What are we going to install now? We'll install Google Chrome. Get Google Chrome installed. While that's going, let's check our settings. We should have everything should just already be set up, but we'll double check it. We've got our previews for files. We've got STL documents here. I want my remote storage files to show, so let's just set that at, I'm wasting time here, 770. That sounds great. I don't think I have anything bigger than that. Okay, so now Google Chrome should be installed. Let's go into my network. Now, out of the box, Endeavor does not have Samba installed, so it's probably not going to find my network, but I know the address. And let's see, stuff. And that's the wrong one. I want keep stuff. STL. And let's see, there we go. We've got STL previews going. I'm going to hit F11. So that brings up this pane here. I like having this pane. I mouse over and it shows me the document. makes it a little bit bigger. It looks cool. Basically, as of now, we've done everything I set out to do. We have Orca Slicer installed. Let's open Orca Slicer up, get that set up, get started. North America. I'm printing with an SV. Oh, I had SN, SV, SV06 Plus. Next, next. Enable stealth mode, sure. I don't want bamboo plugins. Okay, I need to go back into here. I got to get my printer profiles. That should be in keep stuff. Okay, we're gonna put this into downloads. Just copy it in downloads so I don't lose that. Then file, import configs from downloads. There we go. Open. Okay, prepare. Here is my SV06 for my 0.6 millimeter nozzle. Get that connected. We want generic, and let's add, I don't know, let's do a Voron cube. Strength, we don't need this to be very strong. Put at 5%. We don't need 5 shells. Just a simple test print, make sure everything's working. And we'll slice that, send that to the printer. The printer is going, fantastic. We are on a roll. We've accomplished everything. One thing I might want is my video editor. Kdenlive is my video editor that I use, free open source software. I'm not a video editor. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to video editing. Boom. Kdenlive is now installed. Fantastic. Settings, let's run the configuration monitor. It's telling me we don't have the media info. So let's do yay. Media info. Fix that error right away. Okay. Settings, configuration, check. Okay, fix that error. All right, so our video editor is set up. Open up Google Chrome, make that my, oh, I didn't want to send automatic updates, but whatever. We got Google Chrome. We can go to YouTube. That is pretty much everything for this machine that I use for my daily stuff out here in the garage. And we're done. That's 23 minutes. That really isn't that long, and we did extra stuff as well. That is why I love this operating system, or Linux in general. There was no trying to force me to sign into any accounts. There was no trying to sell me cloud storage. There was no, granted, I haven't installed Windows in a very long time, but there was no silly little storage selling or anything like that. It is very simple to use once you learn it. And you know, if you're my age or if you're somebody in the newer generation, younger, whatever, like you probably only know like Windows. I mean, that's how it was for me. I only knew the Windows ecosystem. I only knew the Windows workflow. So the learning curve, like learning how to do things differently, was difficult. But with all of the changes that Microsoft is doing, this just makes so much more sense to me. I hope SteamOS comes out and is a banger. I believe that's based on some kind of, you know, Arch. Is it? In the past, it was. I don't know. I think the first original one was like a Debian base. I believe the new one might be running some kind of Arch. Don't quote me on that. I'm probably horribly wrong. But that's basically my quick install of EndeavorOS on some old hardware. So let's go to the about. So we are running the 1650 V2, 15.5, 16 gigs of RAM, an RX 470. None of this is quality hardware, at least to current date. If you are doing an install on something like modern, a machine that actually has some power to it, this would be so much faster. Getting those files down, compiling all that stuff, it goes so much faster. Now I'm thinking about this, I'll probably want to do some recording out here. So I want to install OBS Studio. There it is. Okay. Now I've got OBS. Like it's that easy. I'm gonna call this a mission accomplished. We've got our system up and running. It's doing what it's supposed to do, and we are just now at 30 minutes. I'm gonna obviously edit this video down, but from start to finish with recording, we were at 30 minutes. So that is pretty darn cool, and that is why I continuously stay with Linux, because yes, it can be a headache at times. Yes, you have to learn and, you know, touch into your touchatism sometime to solve some problems, but it is well worth it. And there are no annoying ads. There is nothing on my screen trying to sell me anything, which when I go to work, I cannot stand how many pop-ups that stupid Surface Pro has randomly about whatever. This machine is never going to force me to reboot to do updates in the middle of something. All of those things are just reasons why I have stuck with Linux for 20 some years. So I don't know. Thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you guys later. Bye bye.